Deneen just sent a message that she's still having trouble.
Okay, well, we'll move forward, and Jacqueline and I have been in touch with her all week about this meeting, so let's just start moving forward. There's always these issues, and we got to be prepared, right? So I will welcome everyone today. We have 41 people registered and 20 people here so far. So there will probably be other people joining us throughout the meeting. In advance of beginning, I want to remind everyone that we will be recording this meeting. So if you do not want to be recorded, then this is your time to exit or just leave your photo up on there if you don't want your face recorded. We just want to make sure that you understand that's how we're moving forward. That could be used on our website or for the virtual chapter, or just for us to review how to improve our Zoom meetings, especially when we enter tech gremlin issues like this. So today, this is the National Federation of Business and Professional Women's Clubs. This is the virtual chapter. And this is our monthly event that we have. Is a meeting and networking event where we are just going to welcome each other. And many of you are virtual members, and I see a lot of people who are members of other clubs or chapters throughout the country. And oh, Crystal, we haven't seen you in a while. That's great to have you here today. And I see that we have a lot of our leaders here today. I'm Megan Shellman-Ricard. I'm the national president. We have Sandy Thompson with us, and she is our immediate past president for the national organization and a mentor of mine. And Deneen, it looks like you've got your issues fixed, so I'm going to turn it over to the president of the virtual organization and have her continue to lead this. And I'm glad I could be here to help. Thank you. We can't hear you though, Deneen.
I think we figured that out.
Hello. Okay. Are we good? Can you hear me? Oh my gosh. On and on, on and on. Tech gremlins love me. Have I ever mentioned that? Follow me. You'll see that's true. Thank you so much, Megan. Thank you all so very much for your patience. I don't know what happened. I logged in 4 or 5 times. Everything has been, you know, how it goes. So I definitely want to thank you all, welcome you. Thank you, Megan, for those introductions and acknowledging those guests that we have of honor. And I would obviously include you among those. So thank you, President Megan, for joining us this evening. Let's see, I will go ahead and jump right in since we are running a bit behind. But yes, this is the virtual chapter event, monthly event. And I'm Deneen Monroe-Rusnak, the current president for the NFBPWC virtual chapter. And I am going to introduce our guest for this evening, who is also a virtual chapter member. We are very, very excited to have her here. I've been looking forward to this. And as soon as my intro, of course, that's not going to open for me either. Oh my God. See, you too can be a president of a chapter. Hang on, folks. I'm going to find it. If not, I'm going to go to my backup here on my phone. Excuse my line of sight shifting. All right, here we go. Let's see here. That's just amazing. All right, so I have a full script ready and everything. Okay, here we go. I'm so sorry. It is what it is. All right. Okay, so thanks again and welcome. Take 80,000. I am happy to be introducing to you this evening Jacqueline Delibes. Early in her career, Jacqueline met spirited characters while working in film, editing on projects for HBO, CBS, and PBS. writing for private clients and publications, and becoming an actress and improviser with training and at HB Studio and the Second City. Jacqueline is also a heart math certified coach, a healing modality that calms the nervous system and restores a sense of psychological safety. Stay on afterwards, Jacqueline, I'll need you. Just kidding. Without further ado, and any more tech interference from me, Jacqueline, the stage is yours.
Thank you. And thank you very much for the invitation. I really appreciate it. So I know that this month there was a theme about persistence and moving forward at BPW. So I wanted to craft a talk about the inner game of persistent feminist advocacy, which is a mouthful and I realize pretty clunky title. But I'm going to be sharing my screen from time to time, and I'll have a few professional looking slides and a few that are extremely silly. So why do we need persistence? Of course, it's to create an equal playing field for women and to change the culture. And it's really a long game. And when I think about the three main movements, women's equality, civil rights, and LGBTQ rights, although they each have different issues, they're on kind of a spectrum. And I'd like to suggest that any kind of pressure on politicians, on the law, and the public opinion for all three of those movements is really to restore basic human decency. That's how I see all those movements. Have you noticed that when progressive laws get passed, they sometimes have decades of opposition? And why is that? Well, sometimes religion is cited as a reason, but besides religion, I'm going to suggest that when a small progressive group of people come up with laws that support basic human decency for women, for people of color, and for the gay community, that those opposing it, I don't know if this is a controversial thing to say or not, but I feel like they're less evolved, less mature. I'm just going to put that out there. So part of the long game of advocacy really is to change consciousness, to educate hearts and minds. And it's a very big job. So part of this is going to be interactive for a few sections. And I would love for anybody who feels called to just unmute yourself for a second. What would you say are the most important issues for women's equality that you think are vital and that you want to see changed? Anybody who wants to contribute?
Well,
I feel like I'm a cheat. Okay, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead while we can hear you.
No, I feel like I'm cheating because I am, I also serve as the second VP of advocacy. So my position is quite frequently expressed in a sense. So I would love to just share the floor with the guests first. So please, was that Francesca? I'm going strictly by voice because I can't see.
Yes. So there needs to be a whole mindset about women and all the contributions we make, and that women are treated equally. And in order to have that done, first of all, really, it has to do with equal pay for equal work. And until we're recognized in that realm, in the business world, and we're given opportunities and experiences that will help us take on additional responsibility in the business world, we aren't equal and we'll never make enough money. And it's really, affects every area of our lives. And, you know, paying the rent, paying for groceries, paying for childcare, etc. So that would be my first. I mean, I have a laundry list that's too long and boring and upsetting, but that's the first key for me.
Yep. Anyone else besides equal pay, which is often top of the list?
Well, I'd go so far as to say we need to pass the Equal Rights Amendment, which might help with the other issues.
Yes. A fundamental issue that might help with others. Yeah. Anybody else?
Yes. Actually, I think that if we're going to if we're going to balance the playing field, then women need to be signing for selective service.
Okay.
We talk about all the positives that we should be getting or we need to be getting.
Yeah.
We don't talk about some of the places that maybe it's not it doesn't necessarily sound warm and fuzzy, but we need to take some of the accountabilities also, and that would be one of them. We should be fighting for that as much as we're fighting for anything else, because until we do, we're not going to be equal.
Service, yes. Thank you.
Absolutely, Barb. And I do know that does appear to be occurring. I do know that the female population is the fastest growing population as far as, I'm speaking from former VA employee and current spouse of a section chief at the VA hospital. So that is the fastest growing population. So that I think speaks to the numbers. And we see.
No,
sorry?
I'm talking about being required to sign for selective service. No women at this time are required to sign for selective service.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I apologize. Yes, I see what you're saying. Yes, you are correct. Yes.
And until we do.
Absolutely.
So no.
Yes.
Our numbers have gone from 2% to 19% from 1973 until currently. But
right.
we are also not fighting for that right, for that opportunity. We should be. If we want to be considered, I
see what you're saying.
We should be fighting for that right. And I don't hear anybody talking about it.
It's not, I don't hear it very often. It's not spoken of that often. Anybody else? No.
Yeah. I think in a sort of different perspective, maybe not so much forging more in the area. It doesn't sound like forging more in the area as far as equity for women, but an additional paradigm shift, I think that's required is the share of the household duties, the caretaker duties. Those also seem to still primarily fall upon the women. And that plays a huge role if we look at, through COVID and things like that. One of the major factors for the she session, and from what we're hearing, the slow to return or considering not returning to the workforce is directly related to dependent care. That's a big factor, and that still primarily affects women. So until that paradigm shift occurs as well, I think it's an uphill battle.
I tend to agree with you, Janine, because only today I was hearing the stats on what they're saying is that women are considering not going back to work. And to me, immediately I thought about then where will that place us? What stand do we have? What kind of voice will we have if we don't get back in the game?
Interesting. We'll have to see how that shakes out, of course.
I wanted to make a quick comment that the selective service is one of the items that is used against us when it comes to ERA and things like that. There's a lot of politicians who say, oh, but if we pass this, then we're going to be sending our women to war. And it's like, well, okay, yeah, we already do, and we should.
That's not the selective service.
So maybe that's a conversation for another time. If you don't mind, I'd like to just move forward. Unless you, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Michelle. If you're still speaking.
I'm done.
Okay.
I'm done.
All right, thanks. Anybody else? Any last? And if you wouldn't mind, just for the recording, just mute yourselves, and then I'll just keep going. All right, so all of those are very important. Everything that you mentioned, even in defining things and redefining things, Barbara, absolutely. And the seldom discussed aspects of women's rights, all very important. So thank you for that. When we look at the big picture and zoom out at women's rights, and I'm going to be talking again about all three movements: women's rights, civil rights, gay rights, and even cultural rights and religious freedoms. There are some public figures that we all know and love who threw and throw a real stake in the ground to get justice. And we know some of those people as Susan B. Anthony, Florence Nightingale, Harriet Tubman, Gloria Steinem, Rosa Parks, Harvey Milk, Greta Thunberg, Martin Luther King Jr., Gandhi, Joan of Arc, and Nelson Mandela. Obviously, not everybody has the destiny to be a public person, but I'm going to suggest those people had somehow earned the right to their fame and their public position, and they worked on and came equipped with some kind of maturity and temperament that enabled them to be incredibly courageous. They were not perfect people. It's pretty well documented that Dr. King had some affairs, but I'm going to suggest that, imperfect as we all are, they were pretty advanced souls. They were not only taking outer actions with the finger pointed at what's wrong in the culture. These people had at some point, and because I believe in reincarnation, just bear with me, maybe even in a past life or earlier in their life, they had done some kind of inner work, inner persistence, inner emotional maturity, inner advocacy, developing inner resilience in order to prepare for that outer work. And I think that that is what made them so powerful. There's a real congruence between who they are on the inside and the outer changes that they stood for. So I thought of a couple of illustrations. So I imagine that many of you have seen, or many of you have seen that little segment of Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech on the Mall. It was quite a long speech, and that's actually a pretty short portion. Well, you know that there were 250,000 people who showed up that day. It's incredible. He was in a very powerful state. And I would even say he might have been in a state, nothing to do with religion here, but I think he was in a state of divine communication. If you transcribed the I Have a Dream speech and gave it to Morgan Freeman, you'd get a weighty, brilliant performance, but it would not be an electric moment that transformed the culture and got hundreds of thousands of people to start understanding their own value and asserting their rights differently. It's not just the words, it's the energy and the intention infusing the words, and it's the energy of love, impersonal love, love for humanity, love for doing the right thing. And even though he wasn't perfect, like all of us, Martin Luther King really spoke to humanity's highest nature. And no performer could replicate who Dr. King was on the inside and the energy beneath his words. And now another example, in the same way, with a very different tone, Greta Thunberg, the Scandinavian teenager, is relentlessly direct and sharp and angry in the way that she is shouting about the environment. And she's doing it to wake people up because we're dealing with a ticking clock. Imagine if you had a friend or somebody with a daughter or a granddaughter who is 17 years old, who's impassioned, a good kid who is impassioned about the environment. If that child started posting and speaking about the environment and shouting about it, would she have the wisdom and the maturity and the passion and the firepower to capture the world's attention? No, this is not about, I'm not saying that public people are better. I'm just pointing out there's a congruence between their inner passion and what they offer on the outside. My third example is Brene Brown, and I feel like she's very much worth mentioning. And you probably know who she is. She's a Texan. She's an academic. She has a PhD, and she researches courage and vulnerability. And you may not think of her immediately when you think of women's rights, but I do, because she's indirectly talking about women's rights by shining a light on vulnerability as a quality that has great value. Vulnerability is something that most people would rather avoid. And it's true that it needs to be titrated properly in the workplace. You know, heaving sobs is maybe not the best move for a woman in a position of power. But a lot of executives, a lot of CEOs, women or men, tend to want to avoid vulnerability. But what Brene Brown has brought to the forefront is that that quality is a direct challenge to the cultural texture of domination. And that dominant quality is really a patriarchal quality of toxic masculinity. So Brene Brown, in my opinion, she's helping to shift the culture by teaching about the value of softer energies as leadership, as a leadership skill. And now if you got Cate Blanchett to memorize Brene Brown's TED Talks or memorize a moving interview that she did with Oprah Winfrey, you would get a technically brilliant performance, but it would lack the charisma and the passion and the energy of Brene Brown. So, you know, I don't expect anyone here necessarily to need to become a public figure. It's not necessary. Everybody has a voice. Everybody has value at every level. However, I wonder if there's a way to become more powerful as advocates of women's rights. So advocacy to an extent and activism to a great extent usually has an external focus to make things change out there. Equal pay, ERA, service. And, you know, with any of these movements, when there's chronic injustice done to any group over time, it creates anger. And that anger creates a fuel that wants justice done and changes out there. So it's natural that that would be the case. I believe, though, that advocacy and activism also needs this: to start a healing process that's inside. Just a couple of personal examples. When I was in my 30s and I was doing a lot of performing in experimental theater, my castmates and I would be smoking our goddamn brains out between scenes and backstage. And it got to a point where I was really having trouble breathing. And for a year, I wanted to quit. I threw them away. I picked them up. I threw them out. I got them out of the garbage. I cut down. I didn't cut down. And that whole battle was the quitting process. And then one day it was gone. I just went cold turkey. I think it's great if people use gum or Nicorette or whatever helps, but I was able to beat it. Another personal habit that needs healing often is the invisible one, negative self-talk, and what's going on behind the scenes, emotional intelligence, emotional regulation. These are things that we can start to work on. I certainly have. I do on a daily basis. I use the tools that I teach people. One that I've really had trouble with personally is food and overeating. Man, that's hard for me. And if you actually opened up my refrigerator, you'd see a lot of produce and fruit and tempeh and eggs and beans. And then, you know, I'm having affairs on the side with ice cream. I wanted to just share this screen for a second with, this is a silly portion. This is a cartoon. Nobody in BPW does this. These are for entertainment purposes only. We're screaming at people to make things right and blowing their hair back. Pointing. There's a standoff. And then we get the finger. This will never happen to you. And then we connect with the heart and we can still be a badass. So, changing habits is doable because I've done it. It's also hard because I haven't. And the inner habit, the inner healing, that's negative self-voice, that inner care that's so necessary to really connect with the soul is the most important kind of healing. And they ultimately, all of these habits that are so-called negative habits, they basically all come from the same place, which is moments where we lack love. And, you know, sometimes that takes some work of healing grief and healing anger and saturating ourselves with love. Can't skip over the shadow piece. I love this quote from the philosopher Kierkegaard. Do not forget your duty to love yourself. So I want to just, this is more of a rhetorical. When you think about how hard it is to change a habit in your personal life, can you understand why we encounter such resistance when we're trying to create massive cultural change? If we want to change the culture out there, we have to shift the culture in here. And I believe that part of what's missing definitely from activism, which has a very different vibe than advocacy. Advocacy feels much more cooperative and holistic and integrated to me than activism sometimes. But I think what's missing from both of them sometimes is love, the intention and underlying energy of love. And I like to think of advocacy as a bird with two wings. Outer pressure to change opinions, the law, behavior, and inner work to heal a lack of self-love, to heal reactivity, to reconnect with the soul, and even to connect momentarily with this idea that we're all one. You know, it's easy when we're seeing injustice to go into the binary of us and them. They're doing something wrong. We've got the answers. And it's easy to forget that we're really all connected. So why is inner work necessary to create outer cultural change? Well, this is just one point of view and one sliver, one way in. And the word is energetics. Energetics, the energy, the subtext underneath what we say and how we say it and who we're being changes how we're received. And there is science to back it up. I'm also a heart math coach, and I'll tell you, they've got some good illustrations. This is the electromagnetic field of the heart. And one of the things that I know from my training is that we're surrounded by a magnetic field, and everybody is, and it holds our emotional content. It's not the same as the aura. It's not the same as the chakras. It's created by the electricity of the heart. And we affect each other with our emotions. And that's one reason it's really important to take conscious charge of that inner landscape and train it to be loving. The magnetic field of the heart, our thoughts and emotions affect the heart's magnetic field, which energetically affects those in our environment, whether we're conscious of it or not. We're affecting each other constantly. So I had a couple of examples of energetics. And again, another word is subtext. So I want you to imagine these scenarios. I purposely didn't bring photos for them because I want you to use your imagination. Sometimes people have a bucket list and they want to do something crazy for a big birthday. So imagine, you may even have friends who've done this, people who've gone skydiving for a big birthday and brought 3 or 4 friends. And what if you showed up at the tiny airport to where everybody's on the tarmac about to take off in a small plane and about to jump out of a plane together? You're not going with them. All you're doing is walking up to them. Can you feel the electricity from the anticipation, the fear, the excitement? It's fear, but it's informed because there's been training, right? There's electricity in the air. What you're experiencing when you walk into that environment is everybody's magnetic field and the emotions that they're feeling. And they're all in rapport, they're all in affinity, feeling more or less the same thing. That's how we affect each other very quickly. You're not even going on the trip and you feel it. Or imagine a summer night and you have a dinner party with your innermost circle of friends with the best food, the best drinks, little lanterns, fireflies, music. And it's so warm and welcoming, and you feel heard and you feel seen. That kind of environment, what you're experiencing is everybody's magnetic field and the emotions that they're feeling. And again, all those people are in rapport, they're in affinity, and you're feeling it. In contrast, you may have had an experience in the corporate world or in any kind of office environment, hospitals, anywhere, non-corporate, where you've been called into a group meeting and you're doing just fine. You're having a perfectly fine day, and you open the door and you're like, wow, what's about to happen? They might be announcing a layoff or something. There's something, and you can feel it the minute you walk in that room. What you are experiencing is the magnetic field and the emotions of those people. We affect each other very quickly. So that's why it's important to do inner work as a component of getting women's equality in the outer world. Because to say it in a very casual way, when we increase the love molecules in our inner landscape by doing practices on a regular basis, the energetics of how we present ourselves in the world, especially as a group, our effectiveness can increase, and we have a better chance of being heard. So, doing practices, and what are practices? It can be a ton of things. It can be a regular daily practice of meditation or breath work or exercise, gratitude journal, It can be a therapeutic exercise. It can be somatic therapy. It can be yoga. It can be a combination of things, but as a real, deep, lifelong practice, you know, the kind of persistence that you need to change the inner world is the same persistence that we need to change the outer world. And I think that when we're in a more self-loving space, and again, not the easiest thing, because it kind of has a little bumpy portion where we're dealing with some unhealed grief, unhealed trauma, and difficult things for some people, not for everybody. But when we do get to a place where we're in the habit of cultivating a more loving space inside, it affects our tone, our energy, our entire demeanor. And I want to say, as a practitioner, I feel there's room for every emotion. I think that it can be a little too facile to be like, everybody just be super positive all the time, because you know that's not real. There's a place for shouting to bring attention to an injustice. But think about how powerful it is when a public figure who's a hero of yours speaks with love and vulnerability and courage, and how that moves people. You know, it increases the chances that people, I don't know about politicians, since they're there on a track of power, but it can move people and maybe make a difference. So that is pretty much my presentation. And if you would like to ask any questions or discuss any aspect of it, the floor is open. And thank you.
Thank you, Jacqueline. And I should have mentioned to feel free to enter questions in the chat if they came up as you went along. Obviously, we have some time here. I am just sitting in this right now, Jacqueline. I just want to thank you so much. I had goosebumps. I felt a lot of emotion that I wasn't expecting to feel at this moment. So I just want to thank you for that. It's a lot of work. And I think for me, if I have a question, gosh, I don't know if it's a question as much as it's a cry for help. I don't know, but so I'm very empathic.
Yeah.
So you described those scenarios.
Yeah.
That we can all relate to. I can experience that on a level I feel like that's just, it doesn't take that concentrated of a vibe for me to sort of sense and feel that. And I've done some growth and things along the way. Are there any rapid, quick go-to shields or protections that you find that work or have worked for people that you work with, or if that's your experience yourself that you could share, insider tricks?
When you say protection, are you talking about feeling less thrown around by your capacities as an empath?
I think that's probably the most accurate I've ever heard that described. Yes. I mean, I would say 90% of the time it's good.
Yep.
But then I guess it's on those days when my bucket, I'm having an empty bucket day. So there's been too many holes in the bucket, and the reserves aren't there, and the tools aren't there, and the thoughts aren't there, and the things aren't, and it's just blah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, a couple of things come to mind. Because I'm a heart math teacher, I like to recommend those tools, and then other things. So what I can give you an idea of what one of them is.
Yep.
It's not really it might take a few things. You know, I have a whole sequence that I learned that's not from HeartMath, where I went to a school to learn a whole bunch of techniques that involve grounding myself. And I can share this with you offline if you like. Grounding myself and filling myself with my own light, filling myself with my soul's light, and then surrounding myself with light. Other people, and believe me, I never thought I would say this in, you know, any kind of public venue where people don't know me that well, but Archangel Michael, surrounding yourself with the blue protective light of Archangel Michael. And I always feel like that's such a risk because it's so woo-woo. And then in terms of just a very simple thing, you got to really calm your nervous system. That's the number one thing that I see. People get out into their sympathetic nervous system and their cortisol goes up, and they get, for all kinds of reasons, very activated. And so focus on your heart, put your entire attention on your heart and breathe into your heart. Stop everything. What I used to do before I knew HeartMath, I tell people when I used to live in New York City and take the subway at 2 o'clock in the morning as a female, I would slow down my walking and I would breathe as deeply and long as I could, and then back in and out as long as possible. That helps get into the parasympathetic as well. And that's what you want to do, is you want to calm your nervous system. I'm highly empathic. I'm an empath as well. And it's unbelievable what that kind of life is, because I feel everything. And I have to constantly do exercises and regroup. I have to do it throughout the day. So
thank you. I can relate. And I can think of a follow-up, but I want to go through here and make sure that we have some things. Sherry, you had your hand raised, I believe. Oh, you're muted, Cher. There you go.
I just have to say that I understand that, because from doing meditation and deep concentration and weekends of silence, just being silent, you learn how to sort of manage those things. And when I worked with young girls between the ages of 12 and 18, they were the most troubled girls. I remember once a young lady who I left to take one of the girls to therapy, and I came back and all the staff was outside waiting for the cops because this little girl had torn up the office and everything. And I said to the nurse, may I go and speak to her? Because I worked with her closely. And she said, no, you wait here until the cops come. And the kid came outside and she started screaming and she sprayed everybody's car except mine. It was pretty funny at the time, but I tried to talk to her. And she was like, Cher, I told them, leave me alone. I need to speak to Cher. And they ignored me and they pushed me. And so the cops came, they took her, they wouldn't listen to me. I tried to tell them I can speak to the kid. They took her to the hospital. I drove my car, went there. The cop, who was being very hostile, a woman, stood next to me and heard the kid confessing, Cher, I know you tell me to listen to my inner voice. I tried, but they wouldn't let me. And I talked the kid through what I needed to do and so on. But what I learned from that experience was that it wasn't going unheard. The kinds of things I would sit on the floor with her when she was hyper. And this is a kid who had been raped more than once by grown men when she was 10 or 9, like that. And so, yes, I found that using my inner calm trying to reach her with the kinds of words that I thought she could understand helped her in many cases, but I wasn't around when the incident happened and it became that way. But you have to use your inner self is what I mean.
Yes.
You have to try your best to, I believe also in reincarnation and Archangel Michael and you know, being centered. So
yeah,
it's the only thing that helps me. Eventually I had to leave that job because I felt as an empath, I was being so drained. It was too much for me. I was having too many of the kids. It was too much.
Yeah.
But yeah, I understand exactly what you mean and what tools to use. It's important to do that. So thank you.
It is. And thank you very much, Cher. And thank you, Deneen, for your question. And yes, the thing that's so interesting is, you know, not everybody has the same kind of orientation, so to speak. And some people are going to be more comfortable with outer actions. However, you know, because we're all in different places, so to speak, with our own healing journeys. So it's just everybody's going to have a slightly different point of view on this kind of stuff. But I know that it's very powerful. And for those who are interested in it, imagine as a group how that shifts the dynamics when you're trying to get something done in the outer world, where everybody's on the same page and kind of vibrating, if you will, or, you know, at a similar place with their approach. So yes, Monica.
Hi, I just want to say thank you very much. I know I'm an empath as well, and just in the spirit of being open and candid, I mean, so empathic, it has landed me in the hospital in the past. And so I very much appreciate you speaking so openly about this, because I think there are many people that are this way, but we have hid in the shadows. Yeah. And I think we're being called to the light, particularly just given where we're at in this world. And so I just want to say thank you. I'm very drawn, and I'm already on your website. And I know that you offer consulting both to organizations as well as individuals. But you talked about this energetics concept, yes. And I'm very big on energy, in part because of the empathic part of myself. Do you have particular readings or things that you could offer or suggest if someone wanted to do a little bit more self-exploration? Sure. And I know that you obviously offer further, deeper exploration in that regard.
A lot of the stuff that I learned about energetics, I learned from HeartMath. So, so some of their materials, those illustrations that I showed with the torus that shows the magnetic field, those are from HeartMath, for example. Yeah, you could go onto their website, either heartmath.com or heartmath.org, which has research. The second one has research. Yeah, energetics, you could look there for sure. And I'm not sure who else talks about it, what another source might be, but a lot of it has to really do with this idea of the magnetic field and the way that we literally, you know, have this sort of evidence-based way of affecting each other. So yeah, that'll be a good source for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Do you not feel that we are drawn, like all the women on this call right now, we all do service. We do service in many ways. Do you feel that we have more exploration and collaboration to do with each other in order to reach a higher level of the kind of work we can produce?
I would say absolutely yes. I would say absolutely yes. What happens, and this is normal, when you have a grouping of people around a concept or an event or a pursuit, you're going to get people who are drawn to this, there's like this one sort of guiding light, but you get all kinds of different people. Why wouldn't you? Who are also going to have different orientations and slightly different ways in to the material. And so the organizing principle isn't always cohesive enough to provide the cohesion that I think you're talking about. Coming from, it's interesting, I circulate in lots of different worlds. I circulate in healing, holistic, new age, spiritual circles that are meditative. And I find myself sometimes in, thank you, Francesca. I find myself sometimes in entrepreneurial circles where I'm learning about what do I need to build a business. And you see the different orientations in these different groups. And what's a wonderful learning from these so-called spiritual, nothing to do again with religion, but these other types of groups, very often, and they have problems too. There can be a lot of ego and all kinds of bullshit in spiritual groups. I say that I used to be part of an ashram, a Hindu ashram with a guru. Oh my God. So it's not that they're better, but sometimes there's a wonderful template where they automatically, in some of those environments, have each other's backs. And it's a kind of an implicit understanding. And I'm not saying that that's missing, but I am saying that sometimes it just needs, maybe can benefit from simply being pointed out or encouraged. Because this is, these are warm, there are warm people here. And there are a lot of very accomplished people who care. And just like you said, are here to do service. So it's already in good shape. However, yes, there's certain things that can be added to maybe make it a little bit more focused and cohesive along those lines, possibly. What a great question.
My goodness. I can already tell I'm going to rewatch this recording a gazillion times. I'm just, again, still just being in this moment it's really strong for me. And I suspect quite a few others as well, if not everyone. And now I know why my computer and all of the energy was all messed up. I feel like it was already sensing the power of this. So once again, Jacqueline, thank you so very much. I do want to just check really quickly to see if there's anyone else that has a quick question. Otherwise, I will go to just kind of announcing some upcoming events. Our next virtual chapter meeting will be on June, date, had it 23rd. And it will be another inside job, as they say. Our guest speaker, who just posed a question tonight and who also happens to be my sister, is Monica E. Monroe, Associate Dean of Equity and Inclusion at the University of Pennsylvania, Carey Law School. And she will be talking to us about imposter syndrome. Is it me? Is it them? I will put the link in the chat here in just a second. And after that meeting, after that presentation, we will have a brief membership business meeting. So for those who are interested in learning more about membership and potential leadership activities, we'll have a brief 30-minute meeting after a quick health break, because I will need it, especially if it's as wonderful as this moment to just sort of regroup. Are there any events that any fellow members or chapter members would like to promo, share? I believe, Marcia, you have one coming up. Are you wanting to share and promo that? I don't have it readily available, and Oh,
Sure.
Oh, there she is. Yes.
Hi,
Hi,
from
Martha.
beautiful downtown Asheville, where my grandpuppy is wandering around. So on the, let me get that real quick. I apologize. I didn't think about doing this. So I would like to promote our Chatham County chapter. They are having an event, their regular monthly meeting on May 26th. Networking starts at 6:45. The meeting's at 7. They're having a speaker, Silver Ray Fox, bringing your A game to life and work. And she is the person behind Foxology Radio. She does radio spots and blogs, and I think it's going to be a very entertaining evening. So I will put the link into the chat for the Chatham County BPW chapter, and then y'all can go there and register for the meeting. Thanks.
Janine, also, we don't have a date set as yet. We have to reset the date, but we have a diversity, equity, and inclusion program coming up, and that should be very exciting. It's with Monica as well. She's becoming our little celebrity amongst us. And so that will have to do, we don't quite have it set up, and it will have to do with intersectionality in some form. We'll have it out. Well, please attend if you can. It's at the national level, and you can sign up for it, members. And I think that's about it as far as what's coming up.
Michelle, are you trying to unmute, or are you just tapping something? I thought you were gonna. Hi. Okay. Excellent. Very, very good. Well, thank you all again. I will be sure to. Oh, Megan. Yes, I'm so sorry.
I know Linda Wilson is trying to share about CEDAW, which is the same date as the one in North Carolina. And I had one quick announcement, Madam President, if you don't mind.
Certainly.
Yes, May 26th, which seems to be a popular day. The East Los Angeles Montebello Club in California is having Liz Benham, past BPW International President, past NFBPW President, and she is going to be talking on CEDAW and Cities for CEDAW. She was one of the founders of the Cities for CEDAW movement, and it's at 5 o'clock California time. And if anybody's interested, I'll put my email. I hope people are interested. I'll put my email in chat, and contact me to make a reservation.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Linda. Yes, May 26th is definitely a very hot date. And President Megan.
I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge and recognize and congratulate our new executive committee intern. She started a formal internship program with us. Bryn Nori, if you can just wave. And we're just really excited to announce to all of you that we've started a formal internship program, and we'll be continuing it through each semester. She's going to be with us throughout the summer. So we're just very excited to have you here, and thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And Jacqueline, thank you so, so very much. I am looking forward to just more of you as well. I appreciate you sharing your insights, your talent, your emotion. And I do second the Brene Brown hat tip to her. The strength of vulnerability spoke to me personally. And yes, I do believe that we need to feel that a little bit more and just own that, and the world will be a better place. I know it sounds euphemistic, but absolutely. So thank you all so very, very much. Somehow with tech gremlins and everything, we are still on time. So nice try, tech gremlins. Thank you all so much.
This one's for you.
Okay,
Yeah.
bye-bye. Oh, that's
Oh, that's Cerise. Thanks,
Okay.
Marcia. All
Bye-bye.
right. If you want to, yes.
Joke, but it's
Oh,
hanging
I'm going
up.
to take a screenshot.
There you go. Take
I'm
care.
going to try. All right. Take care, everybody.
Thank you very
Bye-bye.
much.
Have a great night.
Bye.
Hope to see you next month. Bye-bye.
Hi, ladies. Bye, SSF. I didn't figure out who you were.
Bye. Thank you, Septina.
Oh, yay. Great. All right. I'm glad I sent you a message. I will definitely write down. Thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed yourself.
I did. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye now.
Take care. Bye.